All right, so now that you have your shapes cut out, we're going to start working on creating 3 different compositions that represent 3 of the principles of design. So the reason we have these shapes cut out for this project is that we can really move them around and experiment in a way that you can't do when you're sketching something out. And creating abstract artwork is more complicated than it seems, or more difficult than it seems. So this is a way to really give yourself lots of options. And of course, you'll have more pieces than me, but I'm just trying to make it easy to look at. So you can turn them around if you don't want to see the lines, or I'm working on my desk here so I can really see the contrast. You can also work on top of a piece of paper. So I'm going to try putting different ones together and just testing it out and keeping aware of the negative and positive space. So the color on my desk is all the negative space. And I want to make sure both are equally interesting. And I can try overlapping some things and then leaving some space maybe. I don't know if this one you can leave some out. Each composition can have, 3 to 5 or maybe even more shapes with it. So that's really up to you. I actually like the way that looks with those 3. And I think to me, this is showing some movement. And even if I can try rotating it like it's going up, I think to me that's showing movement. So that's making me happy. I feel good about it. I'm gonna slide my paper underneath that I'm going to tape it on. See if I can get it back. And you can see once we're putting it on top, and I'm just using the computer paper, the same paper that I cut it out of. You can see once we're putting it on top of paper why I'm asking you to use pen, because a lot of the stuff gets lost. So I thought I had a glue stick, but I do not. So I'm just using regular tape. You can use masking tape. You can use whatever tape you have. I'm just using this tape that I have at home. And I'm gonna kind of lift it up and put some underneath. It does not have to be obviously perfect, but if you want to get a couple pieces down just to make sure it stays down. So you can keep your composition, and I want this to be a little more so you can remove stuff if you want. This is actually ripping, but it's fine because it's going to be covered. So it's not precious, right? I wanted that to be rotated more up. I'm thinking about the positive and negative space, so I'm moving that. And obviously I've done this before, so it might take you a little longer to be working out your compositions, and that's okay. I'm just trying to show you without taking too much of your time. So I've thought about all my elements, and then I'm gonna come in with pen. And you can use any kind of pen you want that you have at home. I'm using these Micron pens, and you can use different widths. I'm using the 05 right now because it's easy for you to see. And I usually make a couple marks for how wide I can get it. And if I touch it really lightly, it's thin, and then I can apply more pressure and make a thick line. So this is all I mean by varying line widths. So line widths going from really thick to really thin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trace some of these closed shapes to really emphasize the composition that I've made. And really make sure it's looking the way I want it to look, because you can always make more adjustments. And you could paste these onto different colored paper. I don't have any of that, so I also want you to get used to using pen, because I think mixed media pen and cut paper can really be helpful. And you can draw right over. I'm just drawing over the tape there. That is fine. Whatever works for you. And I'm sort of making one big outer shape, and then I want to see, you know, what it looks like and what I want to emphasize or what I want to de-emphasize, because I think I outlined the whole thing and I do really like this negative space here, but I want to add this back in. And I'm going to play with the line widths by doubling this up and making this a thicker line width. And then maybe I would vary it out so it would go from really thick and then get thinner as it comes around. So this is all I mean by varying line widths, deciding maybe there's parts where you want a thicker line. Like I'm always almost thinking of that as like a shadow, and then it'll get into a thinner line. And then maybe in places like this would make sense for a thicker line. I don't know why. I think in the composition that could just look cool. So make sure these are your closed shapes, right? Are like emphasized the way you want them to be. I don't know if I might want to leave this as one shape leading into it. And then we have our open shapes, right? So I cut out some of my open shapes, and I'm going to use them as a guide sort of, but I really like this shape. So I kind of want to emphasize it by maybe going something like that. And this is an open shape, right? So think about what you want to emphasize, what you want to create in your composition to help, you know, I have movement here. So I'm going to use some repetition with these open shapes, with these lines, to create more movement. And then I can vary my line widths, maybe making them more heavy on the bottom. And then they can move into thinner lines as they go. And that could maybe help with some of my movement. I could also think, since I did this here, I could think about over here creating a similar idea where it moves from the edge of the shape. And this is, you know, I'm really just making this up as I go. I'm thinking about my composition and what I want to emphasize. And I think these curled lines are helping with the principle of design I've chosen, the movement. And what we're going to be doing in future projects is using this as a reference for a painting. So you're going to be looking at this like the way you would look at a photo to make a painting, and making a painting of it. So I really want you to spend time making something that you're excited about, that you're proud of, that you would want to make a painting of. And of course we can adjust it as we go with the painting, but I'm really thinking about my composition, developing these lines, creating a sense of movement, more of a sense of movement with my open and closed shapes where I want to emphasize it. This has a sense of like water. And to me that, I always think of rhythm in that. So that could be another one I chose for this. So I want to kind of get these lines in to give it more of a sense of that movement or flow. And this is it. Just take your time. This looks like waves to me, so I really want to emphasize that. Just take your time and then make sure to write, I'm going to write movement. So when you post it to the discussion, you'll take a photo or a scan and post it to the discussion, we know. And this is kind of not filling up the paper the way I want it to. So I'm gonna use a piece of scrap paper to make some edges to my composition so that we know where it begins and ends. And all I'm doing is using the edge of a piece of paper. You don't even need a ruler to do this, to kind of enclose my composition into maybe it'll work as a square-ish. And maybe I'm thinking about the negative space, and I maybe want a little more space on this side because this like arrow shape is pointing towards that way. So I want to give that a little room to breathe. And I'm gonna try to make it straight, but that will be fine if it's not. There we go. Let me just close this off. So creating that rectangle around your composition can really help because now I've defined all this negative space and I'm feeling like it needs something over here, and I have some more of my shapes. So I'm thinking that I might add this on. So you can always be adjusting, adding. Do I want it to go this way? Maybe it'll go this way. That also conveniently covers up that I made, because it's kind of like these upside down steps or something it's pointing to. I don't know, that seems right to me. So I'm gonna go over this line to cut, because of course you can cut off some of your shapes in your composition to make them more interesting. You could also be making new shapes. But let's get these edges in here so we can really see what it looks like. And oh, that was not good at all because I'm drawing over the tape. It's all right though. There we go. These are like studies. So I want this one to be a lot more thin. I'm actually gonna have a ballpoint pen here or even a pencil and make it a little thinner, the edge of this one. So this is the varying line width. I want the heaviness to be on this side, and I want this kind of floating shape to feel lighter. But I do want to outline it just so I can see what's happening with my composition and how that works. So yeah, then I might continue making this heavier over here since I kind of decided where I want the weight to be. And I could even think about, you know, when I'm painting this, this might be a really dark area, and I can even make a note for myself that would be like a dark corner. So when I'm working out compositions, you know, I'm always thinking about the whole composition and then the details and the elements and what I want it to look like. And I'm also just experimenting and playing with it, you know, have fun with this, move your pieces around, find what works for you. And you're gonna do 3 of these. So this is just one. And for the project, you'll make 3 different ones and, you know, related to 3 different principles of design. So of course, maybe other principles of design could go with this, but for me, looking at it, I saw a lot of movement with these wavy shapes and the sort of arrow shape moving up, and even these step shapes have movement in them to me. So that's how I was seeing it, but of course someone else could see it differently, and for yours, you know, you get to choose. So remember, you'll have your closed shapes taped or glued down, and then outline them, try these varying line widths. You can even try different types of pens, and then create some open shapes, some lines to keep emphasizing that principle of design. All right, have fun with it.